Arcade Heroes.
Hey everybody, this is Adam with Arcade Heroes at IAPA 2019 in sunny Orlando, Florida. And I just wanted to do a video to make this about Mission Impossible Arcade by Sega. Now, the reason why I'm doing this as opposed to showing you the actual game itself, as you might have seen if you saw my tweet about it, is that Sega has to restrict photos and video of Mission Impossible Arcade at this show. And that's due to Paramount Studios, the licensor. They had not approved it for such footage, and so it's like either they have that restriction or they just don't bring the game at all until all the approvals are done. And that's something that happens with licensing sometimes, and that's why a lot of the times in this business we don't see games until they're pretty much finished. Now, for Mission Impossible Arcade, I did talk with the producer, Ogashi, and he's with Sega Japan, and he lives in the UK and handles their games, and he has producer credits for a lot of Sega games. Let's Go Jungle, Let's Go Island, Transformers Human Alliance, Transformers Shadows Rising, Operation Ghost, Target Bravo, pretty much all of their shooting light gun games that they've released in recent years out west. He's been the producer behind them, and he is for Mission Impossible Arcade. Now, he said to me that the game is about 70% complete at this point. What's playable at the show is just 3 stages, so there will be a total of 9 when it's released, and they're aiming for March, April 2020 to be able to release that. From playing the game, I mean, you can tell it's one of Oga's games. It follows his style very well. It feels a lot like Operation Ghost, just with some changes. I'd say it has a little bit of Time Crisis in it as well. Because there's this interesting dynamic that he put into the game, and he explained it to me as he was looking at Daytona, and as well as Too Spicy. Too Spicy is a game that not a lot of people know about. It's kind of obscure. It's a Sega game, and it's a shooter he worked on as well, but that was trying to incorporate the idea of Street Fighter into light gun games, and so it was a one-on-one competitive shooting game, and you would hide behind cover and shoot at your opponent, and it had destructible environments and all that. So he's taking ideas from those 2 games and trying to incorporate them into something that's kind of like Operation Ghost as well, an amalgamation of all these titles that Sega's worked on. And so the dynamic is that so you have up to 4 players can play this game. Now, if you don't have all 4, then AI will fill in the other team if you're just say by yourself, or it's 2 people on the same side, because as the cabinet, and I'll throw up the image here, the cabinet, it's 2 players per side, so there's really 3 screens inside of the machine, 2 opposing screens to each other, 55-inch screens, and then you have a big 65-inch monitor, marquee monitor inside the machine itself. And so when you're playing against an opposing team, it's a race, and that's where you got the Daytona thing in there, is you're racing against the other team to finish the mission first. And so you both play the same mission, and it tracks you by a time, and there's a little bar gauge that shows the progress of each team, your rival team. And so how you can fall behind or pull ahead is by playing better or worse, and so if you play better, then you'll usually stay ahead. And then there's a lot of quick time events, and you've seen these in the Let's Go Island, Jungle games, and the Transformers games, where it'll stop, explain really quick what it needs to do for this mini game, and it's usually pushing a button. In Mission Impossible, it's almost always been pushing a button, tap it at the right time, or when a symbol overlaps another symbol, tap the button, and then you'll successfully complete that, and it'll do a lot of those. And so, like, the first one that I remember coming across is you need to use a grappling hook, and it has these 2 squares that go around in circles, and so when they overlap, that's when you need to tap the button, and if you do it right, then the grappling hook deploys correctly, and then you go up. So if you do that right and your rival team doesn't, then you pull ahead by them by a few seconds or meters or whatever it is, or if they really get stuck, then maybe even more than that. And so that dynamic is really fun, because even though I didn't see the people who were behind me, I knew they were there, I knew it was a rivalry, and so it made me play with a little bit different mentality, and so I really liked that about the game. In the game itself, you're an agent of the IMF, the Mission Impossible Force, or the Impossible Mission Force, sorry. And you've been recruited to do some different missions, and there's a plot about humanoid robots, and some guy that kind of reminds me of Wild Dog from Time Crisis. He's carrying a briefcase, and I half expected him to yell out, "You fools!" When I was chasing him down, but it's not Wild Dog, and that's Namco, of course. But the enemies, when they're going to shoot at you, it does the typical Sega thing of like kind of showing you that they're turning red, but it's different in this one where they fill up from the bottom, from their feet up to the top of their head. So when they're fully red, that's when they'll fire and you'll get hit. And there's always a square on each enemy as well that shows a weak spot, or you can also get a headshot, which also gives you additional points. And so overall, it's I mean, for a 70% game that Paramount wants it to be 100% before they allow us to share footage and whatnot, maybe a little sooner if we're lucky. I thought it was really well done, solidly done, and so I look forward to playing the other parts of it, the additional 6 levels, and I'm sure at EAG, which is a trade show in London in January, there'll be a more complete version there. When we get to Amusement Expo in New Orleans, that's probably where we'll have the final version to enjoy there and can get a better idea, but that gives you kind of a rundown. On the hardware, the cabinet's very impressive, very different. Obviously, it's going to be compared to Halo Fireteam Raven. I would say, yeah, I mean, it is different than that because you go inside of it, and it was designed to be like an IMF safe house. And there's even a sensor in there that ties in with the marquee, which is powered by a Raspberry Pi, by the way. The game itself is not. It does use a new board. It didn't say what they're code naming this, because Sega likes to code name their boards, and of course they are PCs that have been modified in some way, but it is a newer board that I don't believe is like the Sega New or anything like that, but it has 2 boards, one for each screen. Also has a new I/O board he mentioned, but you have these guns, and this is one picture that I was able to get, and I took this before they had any signage up and before anybody told me that there were no photos allowed, but this also shows nothing of the game. It shows the controls, and so as far as I've been told, it's fine. And so this is one thing that's really different, and it took a little bit of getting used to, because mountain gun games, usually it's just one game. You don't have like this gap, but with Mission Impossible Arcade, you have the 2 pistols and they're mounted, and so you grab them, and that's really the only controls, the pistol triggers and a button to the side on the control panel itself. And so it takes a little bit of getting used to and holding it like that, and you have like your view right in between the guns, but it has the reticle on the screen so you can see where you're aiming, and it does use accelerometers as opposed to potentiometers. Accelerometers are very common in a lot of or like gyroscopic controls on your game console. And so I got the feeling for it pretty quickly, and there's also a dynamic where if you just pull one trigger, it's a single shot, which can do more damage, or you can hold it down, do the dual wielding spray and pray sort of thing. But yeah, overall I enjoyed what I played. It was a lot of fun. I liked the spy aspect to it. It had a lot of different events where you have to use gadgets, or there was one that I did fail on where you come up to this desk and you've tripped an alarm system and you have to find a red key card, but there's all these red cards on the desk, of course, so your hand goes around and you have to push the button when you want to tap on a particular card and see if it's the right one, and that's one that I failed actually, and the rival team beat me on it, and I could swear I got all the cards on that desk and couldn't find it. But I did better on the other events, as well as the boss fight, and that was interesting too. Very cinematic, very action-packed and explosive. Graphics are very sharp, very nice. The sound system's really loud, but it has all that bass there, and it essentially turns into sound force feedback, kind of like in House of the Dead, Scarlet Dawn as well. So those are my impressions and some information on Mission Impossible Arcade. And Sega did apologize to me more than once, saying we wish you could have photos and videos. It's just we can't do it, because otherwise if we did, we just wouldn't have brought the game at all. But again, we'll see it again in January. I don't know if I'll be getting over to England for that show or not. So most likely I'll see it in New Orleans in March, and that'll be the final version. And hopefully we can get some more visuals of it before then, but it's something to look forward to in 2020, I think. And it did also, I asked about a two-player version, the possibility of that, and it definitely is possible. They didn't confirm it for certain yet, but it sounded like an 80 to 90% probability that there could be a smaller version for locations that want to have the game but can't afford or can't fit the massive cabinet into their space. So yeah, that's some news for my app of 2019. I am going to try and get more stuff up there. I know a lot of you are chomping at the bit for information, but thanks for watching, and I'll have a lot more videos to come here in a little while, and we'll catch you then.